By the way, thank you for being here. Give yourselves a round of applause. Let's do it right. All right. By the way, let's take a moment. Everybody stand up for a second. Real simple exercise. By the way, take 30 seconds. Introduce yourself to everybody around. For you, just
pouring into all of you. And I'll tell you, this is probably the segment that I was really most excited about because, and I'll get into why I believe that, but I just feel that there's such a tremendous opportunity right now for every single one of you in this room to take advantage of what this company is putting together and the timing of what's happening here. And I realize that there are, because I had a chance to speak to a lot of you this morning, and by the way, taking pictures with guys is a lot different than taking pictures with women. Y'all are a lot low key. Half of you don't even know how to use your phone. I'm like pushing the buttons for you. But anyway, it was cool. But look, I know that there's two different types of people that are in this audience. There's person A who is here this morning because you really want to learn how you can support your wife better in her business. And I think if that's you, I think that can we give that person a round of applause, please? Because you certainly didn't need to get up at 6 in the morning to be here on a segment to do that. But the fact that you are here, I think, says a lot about you. And but I know that there's a second person, and maybe you're teetering between A and B, and person B is somebody that has a vision for what this could be, not only for your family and your wife, but for you. You see this company and this profession as a vehicle and an opportunity for you to do something bigger with your life. And so when I was kind of designing this talk this morning, I really wanted to be able to create content that could serve you no matter where you are. And I promise you that it'll add value to you. But my hope is this. My hope is that I can inspire, and maybe if I started the process yesterday for you, is continue to plant that seed of maybe a bigger vision and what this could potentially be, not only for your wife, but for you in your life. And I think that for me, I have kind of a unique perspective because I come from, my background when I first started in this profession was, I was in a company that was almost 100% male leadership. I started out in a service base. We marketed utility services, gas and electric. So it was a very male, opportunity-driven business, and there were barely any female leaders. So that was, I came up in that environment, so naturally for me, it was easy for me to have a vision to say, yeah, because there were so many examples of what I wanted to be on stage. And I think you come into a company like Plexus, and it's really unique. It's completely the opposite. It's primarily female leadership that are on stage and that are here, and men are in the minority. And I think that so it's easy, you can look at that from two different perspectives. Number one, yesterday I talked a lot about the power of, creating success from the inside out. And how the stories that we tell ourselves about the things that we see in our life, the thoughts we have, all they really are is just interpretations. That's it. All a thought is it's a sentence in your mind. And what happens is we interpret something that we see, we have a sentence in our mind, and we keep thinking that over and over again. And what happens is that thought eventually becomes a belief. And all a belief is it's you thinking something with absolute certainty that you believe it's true. And what happens is we form these limiting beliefs based off of our interpretation of what we see. And here's the interesting thing about this. You could have two people that are in the exact same environment that interpret something two different ways. So you could have one man that comes into Plexus and says, well, there's no female leadership. There's not an opportunity for me. I'm at a disadvantage. I can't do that. Nobody's done it before. And you have this negative limiting thought, which becomes a belief. Very, very different way. And I think, look, if there's ever been a time for a male leader to really take the reins and run with this thing, it's now. With the new products that the company's been rolling out. And listen, and I'm sharing this with you, and by no means do I want to diminish or do I want to make somebody feel less than that really does just want to support their wife, because that isn't less than, right? And I think here's the thing, is there are far too many examples of spouses, whether they're men or women, that ego gets in the way. And I think it says a lot about all of you that are here, that, let's be honest, as men sometimes, we struggle with ego. And to see sometimes a spouse become successful, sometimes that can be taken the wrong way, but to want to say, you know what, I'm not threatened by that, and I want to learn how to support them, to me, that doesn't make you less than, that makes you almost more than, in my opinion. But I do want to really get you to start thinking differently. And I want to share an analogy with you that I think y'all will resonate with, and it's funny, because I shared this story last week. I did a leadership event, it was all women, and literally not a single person knew who this was on the slide, and I have a feeling that maybe I'll have some more people that don't know who this is, but I want to start off with this story. How many people know who this is on the slide? Build up the suspense for you. I don't know if the clicker's working. There we go. Who knows who that is? Roger Bannister, right? So I think this is the perfect analogy and the perfect story for this audience, right? Roger Bannister, the first person to ever run the 4-minute mile. Less than 4 minutes. Now what's interesting was, prior to Roger Bannister doing this, for thousands of years of recorded history, all the way back to the ancient Romans, when running was a sport, no one was ever able to break the 4-minute mark running the mile. And it literally became a belief that it wasn't possible. Because that was the prevailing thinking. And people just said, you can't do it. It's not humanly, the human body is not able to do that. Until Roger Bannister. And I'm not going to go into the story. It's actually a really great story how he accomplished it, not training anywhere near as much as most runners did. He did it through visualization. A lot of his training was just he imagined himself. But he broke the record. He ran a 4-minute mile. And it happened, and here's what's interesting. The record that he held that stood for thousands of years, once he had it, he had for like 14 days. Because somebody else did it literally 2 weeks later. And then within a year, like over a dozen people had done it. And fast forward to today, over 1,000 people have run a mile in less than 4 minutes. And the question that you have to ask yourself is, what changed? The technology, you could argue today the technology is much different, but 2 weeks later, it wasn't changed. What changed is somebody did something that previously nobody thought was possible and completely eliminated the excuse of everybody else in the world. Changed the belief, the power. And I share that with you because here's the opportunity for a lot of you that are in this audience, is for you to go out and run the 4-minute mile for this company. For you to be the Roger Bannister of your team, in your town. And I think that if we start really changing the way that we think about it, and we get rid of these limiting beliefs, and if you're here because, even if it's the small, look, I'll tell you this, even if you feel the smallest stirring in your soul, maybe you came to this event and you're like, look, this is my wife's thing, I'm just here because she made me come, or we wanted to get away from the kids for the weekend, right? And maybe you sat in that event in the last couple of days, and maybe you sit here this morning. Maybe you just have a little tingle. Could this be? Could this really be something that I could do? Like you feel it. You just feel that stirring. You feel drawn to it. You feel like, man, I have a vision of how I could really create something special. And I'm telling you, if you have that feeling, pay attention to it. Pay close attention to it because it's there for a reason. And I think far too often what happens is we have these moments of inspiration and we immediately push them aside because we have these limiting thoughts and these limiting beliefs about ourselves and what Plexus is in your life. So I think this is a great analogy. But I'm going to go back to something that I said yesterday. How success, it's so important to understand, it's created from the inside out, right? It's a matter of being. And the thing is every single one of you has an identity when it comes to your relationship to Plexus. And for some of you, that identity that you formed is it's just your wife's thing. And we have to start really analyzing these stories and these things that we're telling ourselves, because ultimately that's what creates our reality. But from the perspective of leadership, here's why this matters even more. So I want to share one of the things I think that as leaders that we really have to learn how to be better at is influence. If you're going to be a leader in a profession like this, if you're going to be successful, you must learn how to influence people. Because the thing about this business that's different than most others is when you're building a team in Plexus, what you're really doing, you're building a volunteer army. People are here because they choose to be here. See, most in corporate America, I come from medical sales, traditional corporate structure, as I'm sure many of you do, it's leadership most time by positional leadership, right? John Maxwell talks about this. I had to do what my boss, I didn't think was a great leader, but I had to do what he said because he was my boss. But in this profession, it's the purest form of leadership because people will not do what you say just because you say it. And I think it's understanding the beginning of being better at this is important. And here's where it starts. And I want to share actually a study with you that was done. And there's this thing, it's called the Pygmalion effect. And this was based off of a study that they did in the 50s in an elementary school in California. And the researchers, it was a study, they studied hundreds of middle school children. And here's what they wanted to find out. They wanted to find out, prove this kind of idea that they had, that does the belief, if a teacher believes in a student's ability to succeed, irrelevant whether they have the potential or the capability, if they're special, but if you just believe somebody should be successful, will that actually influence their results? And what they did was they gave an IQ test to all of the students, and they randomly selected students, and they told their teacher, they said, these are the gifted students. Now, they had no idea if they even were or not, and they followed them through the year, and they tested them at the end of the year, and here's what they found. There was a significant difference in the outcomes and the performance of the students that the teachers thought were special. And this was a groundbreaking study because here's what it actually proved, is that your belief in other people will dramatically influence whether or not they have the ability to succeed. Now, ultimately, it doesn't remove the responsibility for them because it's not, one of the things that took me a long time to learn as a leader, and this was hard for me, is it's not my job to make people successful. And I think one of the reasons why we get stuck as leaders in this profession is we want it so bad for people, they become our friends, our brothers, right? Our family. And it's hard for us when we see people that we know should be doing better, that say all the right things, but for whatever reason, they're just not doing the work. And we think that, well, it's my job. I need to just drag them across the finish line and make them successful. And what I've learned is that you can do that in the early stages of your business, but if you continue with that process of building your business, it's going to drag you into the ground. Your job is not to work with people that need your time. It's to work with people that deserve your time. And it's not your job to make people successful. It's your job to help people be successful. But understanding that the way that you act towards them, the way that you speak to them. See, what I learned is that one of my biggest jobs as a leader, and one of your biggest jobs as a leader, is to take a brand new person that comes into Plexus that has hope for a better life. But they have very little belief. They're not sure. They're still trying to figure this thing out. Your job as a leader is to take a new person that has hope and transfer that to belief. And this is where this comes in. But here's where it starts, and this is where a lot of people fail. You will not be able to speak belief into someone else unless you've given it first to yourself. So ultimately, what winds up happening is if we don't start with the right set of beliefs and thoughts and stories about ourselves, if we don't get our mind right, we're not going to show up for people the way that we need to. See, here's where this started to change for me. In the beginning of my business, before I understood this and I didn't believe in myself, I accepted everybody's excuse. How many people had people that were supposed to be here at convention that didn't come because they gave you some lame excuse at the last minute? Right? Always happens. I always used to accept people's excuses. I would never take a stand for them. I would never call them out or confront them if I knew that it was something that ultimately was going to harm them. I wouldn't work with people the same way. Then I started understanding this, and when I got my mind right, and my belief right, and the story right, everything transformed around me because I started taking a stand for people in a way that I never had before. I stopped accepting people's excuses. I was willing to confront them. And when I started from a position of belief in myself, and I started working differently with people, that's when everything changed. And listen, I got news for you. Some of you have teams that maybe are predominantly women, and as a man, you are afraid to step into that with them. And I'm here to tell you that's a big mistake. Because I think one of the reasons why I am uniquely qualified to be here today, and what I put together for you, is I put together a training. I'm going to teach you what I think makes somebody a great leader in this profession. And you have to understand, we are in a profession that is 80% women. But over the last 3 years, why I think I'm uniquely qualified is because I've built a business that is about 98% women. Like all women, pretty much. You come into how many legacy leaders here? Right, now watch this. How many people's wives are legacy leaders? Right, see? There's like 8 guys in our membership. But so what I asked myself is preparing for this, I'm like, so let me take a step back and let me think about, because I'm a guy's guy. Somebody said, you're a guy's guy. I said, thank you. I don't hear that enough. But what has allowed me as a guy to be successful building a business of predominantly women? And I'm going to share with you some of the key things that I've identified that I think have put me where I am, but that will also help serve you, whether your role is to support your wife or whether your role is to step into a bigger vision for your life and make this into something more. Here's the first, and I think to me it always starts with this. It's character. I think the reality is we live in a world today where there is an alarming lack of character in the leaders in this world. And it's not the case everywhere. But in a lot of cases, you see this all over the place. And I think in this profession, one of the reasons why this profession has a black eye is because there are a lot of people that are in it for the wrong reasons. Now, I'll tell you, here's why I love being here, because this is not one of those companies. And and I'm not just saying that, I really hope that you all understand. See, some of you, how many people, you've never been in another company than Plexus? So you got lucky. You really did. The quality of leadership in this company from the top down, the quality of the people in the field that I've had the pleasure to work with, and I've worked with a lot of you, there's something special that's being created here, and I'm not just saying that. This is a very unique culture. Outside of here, you don't always see this. But I think, to me, it starts with character. As I said yesterday, why I love this profession, why it's changed my life more than any of the money could ever, is because it's made me the person that I am today. It's a character development program with a compensation plan attached to it. Look, guys, this is not rocket science. You want to know how to win in this profession? Be a good person, have faith, work hard, and never quit. No matter what happens, no matter how long it takes. But to me, here's what character is. In a world that we live in today, the superficial, personality, social media driven world, where everybody wants to paint this picture perfect life, people are trying to be who they really aren't. Look, I'll be honest, people are becoming really, really sour on that. And I think here's what will always shine through is character. See, character is the visible nature of who you are inside. It's not the personality mask that we see on social media. And the thing about leadership, you want to lead people, you got to get close to them. You want to lead people, they got to really get to know who you are. And if you can start from a position, the foundation of integrity and strong moral fiber, that's going to be the thing that takes you long term. The people that I know that have been in this profession for decades, that have succeeded, that have made the tens of millions of dollars, there's one common thing they all have, is strong character. So to me, it always starts with that. And here's the interesting thing about character. Character is built during times of adversity. Look, it's really easy to lead when things are going well. See, over the last year or so, the real leaders in this company have stepped up. Last 5 years, when everything was like a rocket ship, yeah, everybody's a leader, great. But what about when things are not going great? Then who are you? See, that's when character is really shown. See, character happens between stimulus and response. Here's what happens. Here's the way you respond to it, the way you lead people. This is where character is built. This is the reason why, even though I resisted the no's and the failures and the challenges, I embrace them now. Because I know they make me the person that I need to be to deserve the success that I want. And I'll tell you, leadership development and character development to me are the exact same thing. I touched on this, power versus authority. It's important for us to understand that in this profession, we are building a volunteer army. Power is the ability to just tell people what to do, but authority is a skill. Authority is based on influence. And I love what John Maxwell says, leadership is influence. That's it. Leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. And I'll tell you, you will not be able to lead people or be successful unless you can influence them. And I'll tell you, it's sometimes, it's hard for us to admit this, but why I love this profession, because it really is the purest form of entrepreneurship, is it's really easy to tell if you have influence and if you're being a good leader. Just look at your team. Some of you go, wow, I don't have a team yet. I'm like, well, yeah, that's what I mean. And that doesn't mean you're not a good person. It doesn't mean that you haven't worked hard. It doesn't mean that you're not capable or worthy. It just means that you haven't developed yourself to the point to create the success that you want. But we need to start with the reality of where we are, and we need to start the process of getting better. But here's influence to me. And this is where it is a skill. It's one of the soft skills of leadership. Influence is, here's an example. I bring a new person in, new ambassador, they get started today. They're excited, they're nervous, they're not sure, they have hope, they got 1 foot in, 1 foot out. When those people used to, and by the way, are those not most of the people that would sign up?
Yeah.
Like how many, have you figured out by now that most of the people are not going to be like you? They're going to be what I just described. Now I would have so many of those people that would come into my team in the beginning, and they would just wind up never doing anything. And it was easy, I would always be like, well, I'm just looking for the business builders. I got to find those people. But what I was failing to admit is that I hadn't yet stepped into leadership in the way that I needed to influence people to take action. Because influence means this. You get started, you're right here, you don't really want to do what I'm telling you to do, but I make you do it because I'm there. That's influence. I make you take a step when you don't know if you can take the step. You're not sure how it's going to go, but you take the step anyway. And then I make you take another step. And what I've learned is that I can increase my influence and get people to do things, and that can increase dramatically their chances of success. All of that comes through practice. I teach a philosophy called legacy leadership that's based on the idea of servant leadership, which I think that to me is the best form of leadership, especially in our profession. And here's the interesting thing about influence. So I talk about influence, and people are like, well, Bob, how do I want to be more influential? How do I do that? Well, it's really easy. The fastest way to build influence with somebody is to serve them. And here's the great part about service. All service is, it's putting someone else's needs before your own. Here's what I love about service. You don't need a huge downline to serve someone. You don't need a huge commission check to serve someone. You don't need 1,000 views on your video or 1,000 likes on your Facebook post to serve someone. All you have to do is start from a place with love in your heart and wanting to see other people succeed. And that's the message that I want to just put inside of your hearts today. Start where you are. And you'll be amazed if you just take that attitude into every day. I talked yesterday, and I'll say it again. And I feel like this room is a little bit of a different makeup, but regardless of what your belief system is, and I respect people from all beliefs, but I believe the greatest leader of all time was Jesus Christ. And look, if you have a different belief system, that's fine. I love and respect that. But if you just look at what this person as a man did, He was the greatest network marketer in the history of the world. No one has ever built a bigger downline. And let's think about that. Jesus tells us if you lead, you must serve. And he built his kingdom on the foundation of love. And it's interesting because what's interesting is that I've built an entire business on this idea of love. And I talk about it a lot, and I know sometimes people get weird when we say love. Love is not how you feel. Love is the way you act towards people. So I want you to think about that differently. And here's the last thing I want to share with you real quick, because they're like, you have to get off the stage. So I want to go right to this last slide. Danielle's probably freaking out back there. I just want to share this in parting with you. I love Plexus because I hear this word a lot, legacy. And I'll tell you, in my opinion, there has never been a better vehicle ever created for a man or a woman, but I'm speaking to men, to build a legacy for your life. And I'll tell you, here's the greatest gift that I've ever been given, and I truly mean this. And I used to hear people talk about this when I didn't have the money. They say, it ain't about the money. I say, easy for you to say I'm broke. But now that I got the money, I'll tell you, it's not about the money. Here's the greatest gift this profession has given me, is that I will be a better father to my son. That is the greatest gift that I've been given. The person you become in the pursuit of your dreams is the greatest gift that you will ever be given. So thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate it. I love you. Have a great day. Take care.
Years have been in Plexus, about 6.5 years total. So it's amazing being here. It's amazing to see how this has grown. From a very few men that would show up originally to a very large group, which is amazing.
Yeah, my name is Cal Rainey, and we're in Eugene, Oregon. My wife, Cass, and I have been doing Plexus for about 4 years. And yeah, it's just awesome to be here with you guys. Humbled to be here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew Schmidt. Me and my wife are both diamonds now. I just went diamond this year. And we are the only diamonds in Canada so far, and we need some desperate help up there.
So you have some words of advice that you want to share with the audience? What do you think has made you, what's one of the things you attribute your success to?
Yeah, so when we first started, I'm pretty big into technology, if anyone knows me. So make sure you use those resources that are available now. Because I remember when we first started, there was not much available. We were looking up what was in the products ourselves pretty much. Trying to figure out training, trying to figure out how to get people onboarded. So since I was 19, we just did simple things at first. When we started making education, put it into Google Drive, collaborated with our group and our team to be able to get that information together and spread it amongst our team. Which goes into kind of what you were saying on social media as well as that very natural approach. We had to figure out a way to be able to talk to people in a very personal way. For me, traveling a lot, it was easy because I don't know how you guys' diet has been since you've been in Las Vegas, but mine's been pretty bad. So being on the road and eating like that for 4 days a week, it was an easy way for me to start a conversation with somebody about the products. So you got to make sure to find that niche, something that's personal, something that's relatable, so that it's easy for you to be able to talk to somebody.
No, you know, I think one of the things that I come across a lot with this business, that I come across a lot is they ask the question like, well, how do you have time to do this? Like, how do you put this on your plate? My wife and I, we have 9 kids. Wow. This is where you applaud. This is where you actually applaud and go, thank God that's not us. So that's all right. Bob didn't tell you we're actually twins. He doesn't really admit that in public a lot. No, we have 9 kids. And we're constantly busy. We're going to a basketball game. We're going to someone's gymnastics. We're going to a kid's play, and we got to pretend that it's actually good. I mean, there's things that we have to, that we do all the time. And I get asked the question, like, how do you have time to do all of this? And you know, how do you build margin in your life? But see, what people don't really understand is 4 years ago, we were broke. I lost both my jobs due to financial cuts, and we had to do the unthinkable, and that's go on government assistance, go on welfare. And after we got introduced to Plexus, 4 years later, we're now going from welfare to seeking the welfare of other people. And so that transition of mindset actually allowed us the ability to have that unshakable belief to create margin despite the 9 kids, despite all the things that are happening. And if I could say just one more thing, we talk about margins a lot, but I'd actually like really encourage you guys, even, and I love what you said, Bob, like, no matter what level you're at, maybe I'm here to support my wife, maybe I want this, man. I really want this as a business. Find your natural, God-given rhythms to do it in. I mean, don't be weird and plexus. If you're gonna be weird, go do another marketing company, man. Don't be weird. Don't be like, hey, man, sounds good. I see you got a donut there. That's gonna kill you. Here's some pink drink. I mean, that's weird. Don't be weird. You don't gotta be weird. Just be yourself. Man, you like going golfing. You like going hunting. You like going fishing. Man, I love doing those things too. And I've got my crew. I've got my tribe of buddies that I do with. And it naturally comes up. So you take it from the margins and put it in the mainstream. Find your rhythms that really work for you and weave it into conversations. And a lot of times people, well, that's a bait and switch. Yeah, it is a bait and switch. I'm baiting you to be my friend. And I love what Rob said earlier. Man, he's made lifelong friends. Man, I got 2 of my guy friends up here, and we're brothers, dude. We're going to be through this through thick and thin. And the switch is, not only are we going to have this amazing relationship, but we got life-changing products that are going to build a legacy for our family. Awesome.
Our approach to this business was actually quite different than what most people say. Is I convinced my wife to do it. We got a message from Kristen Abert, and Eva said, man, I think Kristen scammed me. And I said, well, I want to see this. What is it? And first thing I asked, send me the comp plan. I want to see the comp plan of this company, because we had been combing through companies for about 5 years. She wanted to do something. And I had always 2 rules, it's how much time goes in to get a return and what's the return for the time that we put in. And I never found anything that I said is worth your time. So when this one came along, I said, this is it. If you want to do it, this is the one. So we sat down, before we signed up, we sat down and we came up with a plan is, how are we going to do this? Where do we want to go with this? I was, at the time, my job was flying helicopters, and I was out on forest fires a lot. So when we came up with a plan, she signed up, I would get a phone call, 30 minutes, I would have to pack my bags, and I would be gone for 3 weeks sometimes. We'd sit way in the middle of the forest somewhere, hardly any cell phones. I would climb up on the machine, sit on top of the machine to get some cell service, so I could find out what's going on to help her to do what it is. Point being, if you want to change the situation that you're in, you will find a way to do it. And it doesn't matter how far in the forest or in the wilderness you are, you will find a way to do it.
Hey, do me a favor, can we give Zach Andrew and Kyle a round of applause, please? Okay, so now I'm going to bring Victor back up on stage. Thanks for having me this morning, guys. I appreciate it.
By the way, give Bob a big round of applause. Awesome. I'm not going to talk too much because what I want to do is bring up Alec, who has some final words. But after Alec, please don't leave. We're going to do a group photo where you guys are just going to stand up. We're going to shoot something from the stage. Is that cool? We do it afterwards. I was just thinking, should we do it now? Yeah, let's do it now.
You better be there. Good for being here, good for rising up early and coming to this meeting. Well, this makes me so proud and happy. I think, most of you know that we're a female-driven business, but it's a business for everybody. And our products are for everybody. You guys work so hard in building your businesses. And I think we're gonna move that needle just a little off of the percentage that we're at. We'll just move it just a little. I think active is gonna be a big influencer on that. And so, thank you so much. Hey, Brad, you want to stand up? Here's a big man, Brad. Let's give Brad a big round of applause. All right, well, we got a full day planned. I just wanted to take a second and let you know that you are important as well. So thank you for all that you do, and let's rise up today and have a good day. Thanks. See ya.